Two men set off in an RV across the country to fulfill a promise before the Earth gets sucked into a black hole. What could possibly go wrong? Hi, I'm Amanda, and this is Spineless Books, your one-stop spoiler-free shop for all things audiobook. TJ Klune has had my heart ever since I picked up House in the Cerulean Sea. Since then, I've read a number of his other books, and I was excited to see We Burn So Bright released, and that it was going to be narrated by Kirt, one of his regulars. If you're not familiar with TJ Klune, he writes about love, friendship, unlikely heroes, and just what it's like to be a human. Or sometimes not a human. He often writes about magical creatures. But the thing about TJ Klune is that everything he writes is warm and fuzzy and feels like a hug. I think he's a really great author to read if you need a pick-me-up. His books also fall under the heading of LGBTQ, and I'll assure you that if that's something that you're letting turn you away from reading TJ Klune, you're making a huge mistake. I don't think any of the sexuality in his books is overt. I think it's just there as who these characters are, and anybody can read it, and I don't think they'll find it offensive either. What TJ Klune is really seeking to do is represent a demographic that is not always represented positively in literature. He wants to see happy stories about people who happen to care about someone of the same sex. And that's what he sets out to do, and he does it well. I think anyone with a heart can appreciate TJ Klune's writing, and We Burn So Bright is no exception. The book follows two men, Don and Rodney. They're in their 70s, and they've been a couple for many, many years. They're a married gay couple who's setting off in an RV to go across the country to fulfill a final promise. And everyone knows the Earth is about to get sucked into a black hole. So, for lack of a better term, the wheels are off. People are going crazy in all sorts of ways, and Don and Rodney finally have the inspiration that they need to take care of this one last piece of business. Some of the behaviors that come out are wacky, and some are wonderful, and some are downright scary, and Don and Rodney run into pretty much all of them. Structurally, the book falls into basically vignettes. As Don and Rodney travel across the country, they run into all types of people or archetypes, and they spend a little bit of time with each of these people. They do really feel like small vignettes, so it's an easy book to pick up and put down, but it's not really even a long book, it's technically a novella. As the book goes on, the reason for their little road trip is revealed. And I will say, I didn't think the mystery was all that mysterious, but that's not really the point. TJ Klune just waits until you've gotten to know Don and Rodney and, in all fairness, love them, before he tells you about their deeper, darker trauma. I felt like I got the full story once I was ready for it, so TJ Klune knew what he was doing. I watched an interview with TJ Klune after I finished the book, and one of the things he talked about is how the AIDS crisis decimated the gay community, and many of the gay elders just aren't around. And I never thought about that, how the LGBTQ community doesn't really have elders, or maybe is just developing elders. So the idea for Klune that an elder gay couple who's been together a long time be the center of a story was really important. And again, if this doesn't apply to you, I think there's still something to get out of it. I am not a member of the LGBTQ community, even though some of you feel like you've decided I am, but I have to tell you, these books are just about being people. So I really didn't think about that. I mean, yes, their names are Don and Rodney, but they could have been Don and Sheila, and I think the story would have resonated the same way. Without giving away the whole story, you've got your hippies, you've got your people who are just going wild before the end of the world, you've got the people that are panicking, you've got the people who are doing not great things, and Don and Rodney spend a little bit of time with each of them, but they are on a mission to get across the country, and the Earth's time is limited, so they don't linger too long with any of the groups. The book is extremely dialogue heavy, and it has TJ Klune's familiar lightness, but this one did feel a little bit more serious than most of the ones I've read. Now, if you know most of TJ Klune's very popular books, you know they're usually narrated by either Daniel Henning or Kirt, both of whom are amazing character narrators. I always wonder who he's going to choose for each because I feel like they're so iconic. But for this one, Kirt got the nod. In reality, he does do a little bit of voice for this, a little bit of character changing, but overall it was serious narration, and I think Kirt did an amazing job. His narration was perfect, and the light moments were light, and the heavy moments were heavy. Even though this differed from the Kirt Graves narration that I'm familiar with, the tone was right, and I think it was a really wise choice. Klune writes with a simplicity and an authenticity that allows you to really feel for his characters. It's a human story more than anything else, and the apocalypse is a catalyst for Don and Rodney to kind of get on it and handle this business that they've needed to handle. It's a beautifully impactful story, and I think it inspires a lot of introspection about how you would respond in similar circumstances. I was fascinated to learn that Klune was inspired by COVID. He talked in an interview that I watched about the fact that during COVID, understandably because of fear and the unknown, people's selfish behavior came out. And that's pretty true. But the thing is, we knew COVID would eventually pass. So Klune wanted to know what would happen if a similar circumstance occurred, and we knew it wasn't going to pass. Hence the apocalypse. We Burn So Bright plays out these possibilities from Klune's imagination, and they feel to me like they pretty much track. I also need to say, as the book says at the beginning, there are some serious triggers in this book. If you're sensitive to information about suicide, don't pick this one up. Or unless you're looking for some kind of catharsis by reading about it, I don't know. But you need to know that it's in there, and it's a pretty big part of the book. So, overall, is the book depressing? I mean, it's not the most uplifting TJ Klune I've ever read. But again, I still feel like there was a lot of heart and hopefulness in this story. I did find the subject matter emotional, but I also felt like it was handled respectfully, as Klune always does in my opinion. This one was short, technically a novella, and it was not a 5-star read for me, but it was close. This one rated at 4.5 for me. And many of my TJ Klune books are kind of like an automatic 5, and this one was just not quite there, even though I did really enjoy it. He's an author who I will always be happy to read, and I do want to eventually read his whole catalog. But this one was just really good and not amazing, and that's okay. They don't all have to be 5 stars. In fact, with Klune, I think the bar is set so high that this would probably be a 5-star read from someone else. If you like his books, you should pick this one up. I mean, the man writes like a maniac. He's got more books coming out all the time. And he said he wrote this one in just a couple of weeks, which is kind of amazing given the quality of it. Even when he misses the mark, he's wonderful, and I will always read what he writes. But remember, you might love what I hate and hate what I love, so make your own opinion, and thanks for listening to mine. See you next time.